Sorry, I'm just making one quick arrangement. I apologize. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I apologize for the delay. I'm working from home, like I'm sure many folks are, and I'm suffering from having too many tabs open. All right. Oops. So welcome everyone to APALA's, I think actually our first webinar of 2021, addressing the stigma, mental health and wellness resources for Asian Pacific American communities. Happy Women's History Month. I'm Candace Wingy-Mack, and I'm honored to be the current president of the Asian Pacific American Librarians Association, also known as APALA. Founded in 1980, APALA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing leadership opportunities through informed dialogue that addresses the needs of Asian Pacific American library staff and those who serve APA communities. Last year, 2020, was our 40th anniversary, which we're continuing to celebrate through ALA Annual this year, since it has and continues to be such a challenging time. We appreciate the support that you've given your families, your institutions and communities, and also to our association during this difficult past year. Please continue to encourage your institutions, colleagues, and allies to stand with us in condemning the recent anti-AAPI and xenophobic attacks against our community and community members. And you can do so through the statement that we put out late last month, which includes a link to additional resources to share out, as well as a link to share your commitment or your institution's commitment to visible actions to continue to bring light to these attacks that have been happening, and also strategize ways to prevent them in the future that do not necessarily involve the police. I also want to acknowledge and honor all of you and any of you who may have lost loved ones in this past year due to everything that's been going on. And so I want to especially thank you for being here today, and also to our guests, especially for sharing their wisdom and resources with us here today. So with all of that, we wanted to start off this webinar with actually a 5-minute meditation session with Mody Pasa. Mody recently started sharing the practice of mindfulness meditation. She received her teacher training from the School of Positive Transformation, and she's most happy and fulfilled whenever she helps people, which I think also can be said for many, if not all, of the attendees today. Mody hopes to introduce mindfulness meditation to those who seek clarity and calm in the mind through the ups and downs of life. And I will stop screen sharing now. And Mody, if you want to take it away.
Good morning, everyone, or I should say good afternoon. I'm sure, thank you, Candice, for the introduction. Um, thank you so much for having me today. And I know everyone's anticipating this webinar meeting, and it's such an important meeting for everyone. And I'm glad to see that there's a lot of people who are actually interested in participating in this. However we started our week, it's always a good start, a good day, good time to actually set small intentions. So welcome to our 5-minute breathing with intention, and find yourself a comfortable position. You may make sure your back is straight, and you may put your arms on your lap or wherever you feel comfortable. And when you're ready, begin to take a deep inhale through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Let's do one more deep inhale, exhaling through your mouth. Now slowly ease your way to your natural breathing and gently close your eyes. Just simply enjoy this quiet moment of stillness. Just focus on your breath, nothing else. Just simply be present just right now, just quiet. Let's try to set an intention for the rest of this week. Something that's within your control, something that's practical. It could be as simple as being patient or listening to your peers, or not overwhelming yourself with so many things to do or think. Whatever you choose for an intention, make sure it's something that you're able to do. The more you bring this to your mind, the more likely it is to happen, and more likely that you'll experience the benefits of it. So just stay with your breathing, slowly and gently. Breathing in on the count of 4, and breathing out on the count of 4. Now simply place your awareness on your intention. Know that it requires a gentle focus to make it happen. But also try not to be too hard on yourself if it doesn't. So let's set your intention while inhaling slowly and exhaling gently. Notice how you feel on each breath you take. Each time you exhale, just enjoy this feeling of simply focusing on your breathing and nothing else. Just inhaling slowly and exhaling gently. Stay with your breathing. Now slowly reach both of your hands up high as you stretch and do a deep inhale. And slowly release your hands down on the side as you exhale through your mouth. Let's do this one more time. Hands up, deep inhale, and hands down, exhale. Now slowly bring your awareness back to the room, to your body, to where you're sitting. And gently open your eyes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good webinar.
Thank you so much, Mita. Thank you for leading.
Having me.
Thank you. And
Okay. Have a good morning or good day, guys. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon.
I hope so too. Thank you again, Mita. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to start this webinar with a little bit of mindfulness. I thought it would help really kind of frame the discussion that we're going to embark on, and hopefully give you some or help the rest of the day, move forward a little bit more peacefully and mindfully. To that end, it's my pleasure to introduce our three wonderful speakers today. Sujin An is a licensed marriage and family therapist at Asian Pacific Counseling and Treatment Centers. Stacy Ma Dubois is a licensed clinical social worker with the DMS-DHS collaboration program. And last but certainly not least, Nisha Mody, MLIS, MA, CCC-SLP, is the Associate Director of the Network of the National Library of Medicine, Pacific Southwest region, based at UCLA. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure, I'm sorry, who would like to start?
I'll be starting.
Thank you, Nisha. Nisha.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. Can everyone see the presentation?
Hey, Nisha. Yeah, can you turn on the captions?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Trying to. Sorry, I'm trying to remember.
Was that on Google Slide?
Was it?
Or... Yeah, your deck, if it's on Google Slide, yeah, it should be in the...
Oh, it's actually on PowerPoint. I just remembered that I didn't.
Okay.
I just remember that. My apologies. Our update. Next. So for those that don't know, you might be wondering what's the difference between NNLM and NLM especially. The National Institutes of Health is part, as you all know, of the federal government. It's the nation's medical research agency, and it has 27 institutes and center, one of which is the National Library of Medicine, which is the world's largest biomedical library. So NNLM is actually the outreach and education arm of the National Library of Medicine and is comprised of 8 regional medical libraries, as I mentioned, RMLs. And so the Pacific Southwest region is one of those 8 RMLs, and we serve Arizona, California, Hawaii, Nevada, and the US territories in the Pacific. You can click next. So anyone could be a member of NNLM, and you will have access to courses and webinars. There are 2 types of members. You could be an individual who signs up, and a lot of the courses and webinars you take can also count toward continuing education, especially if you're part of the Medical Library Association. It could count toward certain specializations, and these are all free. And the organization you're a part of can also be a member, and it's very possible that they already are. And basically what this means is they can become partners with NNLM for certain initiatives. They are also eligible to receive funding for any health literacy or education type of project. So if you would like individually to become a member, you can do that and have access. And you can also talk to your organization. It's free membership. Yeah, and it really helps us to connect with other organizations. So you can go to this website, nnlm.gov/user/join. You can also just go to the nnlm.gov website and go to that bottom right part of the page and sign up. And if you can always reach out to me or anyone at NNLM to learn more. Next. So as for NNLM, NLM, and NIH mental health resources, I'm going to go through these a little bit quickly. I will be able to send this presentation to Brian so he can, or sorry, not Brian, to Ray to send to everybody. I just wanted to let you know I might be going through them quickly because I want to make sure we get to Sujin and Stacy. I just wanted to talk about some resources. This isn't everything, but it definitely is some of it. So we're going to be talking about some NNLM courses you could take, Medline Plus, the National Institutes of Mental Health Resources, as well as the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health Resources. Next. So if you do sign up as an individual member and go to nnlm.gov/training, you'll see this screenshot. You can search for different NNLM training opportunities related to all types of health topics, including mental health. You can search by category, by availability. There are some that are recorded from the past and other ones that you can attend live that are coming up. If you are interested in continuing education, you can search that way, and you can also look at the course catalog. Next. So something that is coming up for us is this Blossom Virtual Symposium, and Blossom stands for Building Lifelong Opportunities for Strength, Self-Care, Outlook, Morale, and Mindfulness. This is a free symposium, as I mentioned, from March 24th to the 26th, and I think this is a great opportunity for anyone to attend this and to learn some helpful mindfulness techniques as well as its self-care. So you can go to blossom.haysummit.com. This is being led by the Greater Midwest region of the University of Iowa. Next. MedlinePlus.gov, some of you may be familiar with this resource. This is essentially the NLM's consumer health website. So you can search this for any topic. As you see on that top right corner, there is a search bar. You can search for topics related to mental health and other health topics that you might be interested. I think it's important to remember that while there are certain mental health issues and mental illnesses, any health issue that one might have can affect your mental health, right? So it is really important, I think, to connect with a resource like this. There's no advertisements on this or anything. It is vetted information. And it also connects to other NIH institutes information, as well as other associations, medical associations, et cetera, that have like this information, including places like the Mayo Clinic, et cetera. Next. So a lot of the information on Medline Plus is organized into health topics. This is one example of the mental health topic. And this on this slide, when you get it, it is actually connected to, if you click on the image, to the website within Medline Plus. And as you can see, this has different research related to mental health. It gets specific in terms of populations. It has teen health, older adult mental health, I believe, is actually a new health topic. So they do add health topics. And as you could see on the right side, there's related health topics. So you could definitely explore this to find more information. Next. There's even a topic about how to improve mental health, which I think is really great. So you can scroll through this to see different ways to improve. And again, it does connect to external resources for you to dive deeper. Next. And there is also an Asian American health topic. So while this isn't specific to mental health, it does have information and research related to Asian American health. And I definitely wanted to bring this up, given that this is, for APALA. So you can look at this, and they do have some information that I did see that is related to mental health on this page. Next. Moving on to the National Institute of Mental Health. So if you go to this site, you'll find a lot of information and research related to mental health from this specific institute of the NIH. This is just a flyer that there is about being stressed or anxious. And the links on the left point to, the first is a YouTube video. It's just like a 1-minute video about depression. The second is an image library that, shows, brain scans and different types of images related to mental health. And the last was a live stream that happened in January that you can look, the recording's available. And if you do go to this website, you'll actually see in the center, there are a lot of topics that they center, including ADHD, schizophrenia, et cetera, that you can find out more information about. Next. And then there's the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. And this is basically exactly what it sounds like. I'm just kind of looking closer to read. We conduct and support research and provide information about complementary health products and practices. Oftentimes people are looking at, maybe something that isn't like medication or something that is medication, but how it can interact with another type of practice. So this has really great information, including health topics, as you could see, how to be an informed consumer, et cetera. Next. This is one page on there, tips on complementary health practices. If you go to the site, there's even, I saw information about yoga and other types of health practices that are related to complementary health. So you can go to this site. As you can see, there's information in Spanish as well. There is a lot of bilingual information I forgot to mention on Medline Plus too, and even information in a lot of other languages. For example, we were able to provide, PSR funded a project with the Southeast Asian Community Alliance in Koreatown in Los Angeles, and we were able to give them a lot of health information in Mandarin and Vietnamese to offer to the community. Next. So just an example, if one of your friends says, for your depression, you should use St. John's wort. It worked for me. You can go to this website and you can search in the search bar for St. John's wort. And one of the first, links is talking about St. John's worts and depression. I actually did a quick search for coronavirus too, and there was some information about alternative health treatments and coronavirus as well. So this is definitely a really great resource, a hidden resource that I think a lot of people don't know about. Oftentimes it doesn't get ranked first on Google, but that's why I wanted to bring it up to you all. Next. So I just wanted to give a quick PSR update. So currently the NNLM RML configuration, there are 8 RMLs, us being one of them. Starting May 1st, there will be 7 regional medical libraries. So our current region covers California, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, and the US territories in the Pacific. And starting May 1st, California will be in an expanded region of Alaska, California, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and the US territories in the Pacific and the freely associated states in the Pacific. So you could see we will no longer have Arizona as part of our region. This hasn't been publicly sent out, but it is something that everyone is, it's not necessarily a secret. There's just more of a formality, but unfortunately the UCLA did not get chosen to move forward starting May 1st. However, we're really looking forward to a smooth transition to the RML going to the University of Washington, which has had a very long relationship with NNLM. I think 50 years just like UCLA. So we're looking forward to that smooth transition, and know that if you become a member individually or as an organization, that will not affect anything there. There will be continuity. So I just wanted to give that update while it is necessary. While NLM has not sent out the announcement of that yet, just so you know, as of May 1st, I will not be the main point of contact. However, you can reach out to the RML at the University of Washington for any more information related to any of the information I shared. Next. Thank you. Definitely want to move on to the great information Stacy and Sujin will share. Feel free to email me, head to our website if you have any questions. And thank you so much, Ray, for helping me with the captioning situation. It totally slipped my mind at the end. So I appreciate it because accessibility is important.
Great, you're welcome. Thank you, Nisha, for sharing such great resources. I'll pass it to Stacy and Sujin.
Ray, can you confirm that you can see my slides?
Yep. And
okay, and I'll turn on the caption.
Great, thank you.
Great. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Stacy Montebois, and I am based out of Los Angeles County. I work for the county's Department of Mental Health. Currently, I wanted to share with you that I do identify as a Chinese American. My family immigrated here when I was really young. That has shaped my childhood and upbringing, and then also my career path into mental health. And I'm really grateful to be here today to share information about mental health and how it impacts our AAPI community.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sujin An, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm a program coordinator with Asian Pacific Counseling and Treatment Centers, and we're a nonprofit mental health agency contracted with Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. And I am a Korean American, second generation. I was born here, and similar to Stacy, I think my cultural background and just my family's immigration story also kind of led me to pursue this field and work and be a part of Asian Pacific Counseling and Treatment Centers.
Thank you everyone for having us today. You know, we have a full schedule for you, or agenda for you, and it is mainly because we got a lot of questions ahead of time, and it helped us to curate something that would answer a lot of the questions that you had. And I also recognize that some of you may have additional questions afterwards, so we will have a Q&A. But again, thank you for sending in your information. I won't go through all of this, but you know, we want to jump right into it and talk about how mental health is important and how it can affect our AAPI community. So the first thing I want to bring up is how mental health, what is the difference between mental health and mental illness? Mental health usually refers to our emotional state, how we relate to other people, how we feel about ourselves, and how we interact with others. Mental illness refers to a range of disorders that may affect our mood, our thinking, and behavior. People usually that have a mental illness often experience distress, and it causes problems in functioning at home, at work, or in social situations. The key point though is that, you know, we have with mental illness, it is a treatable disorder. So a big thing about mental health stigma in the AAPI community is that, you know, in NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, found that only 23.3% of AAPI adults actually received treatment in 2019. And, you know, that makes you wonder, like, why is that? There are actually a lot of barriers that prevent AAPI folks from receiving treatment. There are a big one is a language barrier and availability of interpreters. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding that there might not be a therapist that can speak their language. There's also a lack of culturally relevant and integrated care. And what that means is that, most AAPI communities would have a preference towards alternative medicine or non-Western medicine, something that Nisha mentioned earlier, complementary and integrative services. And so, they're looking for more of a holistic approach where you can treat not just mostly the physical, but also your psychological aspect as well. And then a big part of what leads to lack of treatment is the stigma. Stigma, the loss of face is something that is such a huge notion in the community, which refers to, you don't want to shame your family. There's also the fear or understanding that mental health is considered a weakness. It could be believed that is a sign of poor parenting. Also, mental illness isn't talked about much because maybe the family is trying to protect the individual's reputation in terms of, being able to succeed in society, and also possibly immigration status if that's applicable. And then there's also been religious association of mental health that's been negative in some way. Sometimes, some religion may believe that mental illness is a result of immorality or sins, and then others may believe that it's a result of reincarnation.
So these are some of the questions that we received beforehand that were related to stigma and mental health. And so we'll take some time to answer this. And question number one was, it is considered a sign of weakness for Latinos to admit mental health issues. Is it a universal truth for minorities? So just like Stacey was, just talking about with the stigma on mental health, especially in the Asian communities, it is. And at least in the Korean culture, and I know Stacey had said in the Chinese culture as well, mental health issues is seen as a weakness, and the whole idea of wanting to save face and not wanting to bring shame onto the family, and this really kind of leads people to hide it from other people, like not talk about mental health issues. Sometimes even within your own family, I would have a lot of clients that were suffering from, really severe mental health symptoms and issues, and even their own siblings didn't really have an idea what was going on. I think even siblings and cousins, they might know that, this individual is having a hard time, but they wouldn't know the details of maybe their diagnosis or even their symptoms. It's very hush hush, and it has to do with wanting to save face.
Yeah, and I just want to add that it's heavily emphasized in upbringing and even in discipline sometimes. The next question is, how does internalized racism play into mental health of AAPI communities? The one thing that we see is that if someone sees themselves as lesser than, then they're less likely to advocate for themselves and also have a lower self-esteem. There's also something called the model minority myth, which is this constant pressure that AAPI youth will feel because there's this view or expectation that AAPIs are successful, that with their background that they should succeed. And so that's a lot of pressure that youth may feel growing up. There's also the stereotype of, AAPIs are all good at math, or that they're, focused in school. And so when they don't meet that expectation, it actually ends up causing a lot of issues in terms of, creating mental health problems, having behaviors and symptoms such as feeling isolated, feeling different from others, maybe feeling, depressed, suicidal because they're not meeting these expectations. The other question we got too was, how do you navigate getting culturally responsive mental health assistance when you're in a community where, where there are, you are the minority and resources are limited? Yes, that's very challenging. And the one thing we can say is, in terms of receiving treatment, you do have a right to an interpreter. Is considered a patient's right. And so ask for the interpreter. There's also now, especially with our pandemic, a lot of services that have gone online. And so accessing services has actually been a little bit easier in terms of asking for services that are online and might be out of your immediate vicinity.
Okay. So I just saw that the closed captioning doesn't work for other people that aren't presenting. So Cece, I'm gonna share it just for the next 2 slides.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Let me stop share.
Oh, okay. So share my screen really quickly. Okay. So our minds and bodies are very connected, and our emotional health impacts our physical health and vice versa. And so it's not surprising when a lot of our clients come in for these physical symptoms, like insomnia is a big one, fatigue, headaches, stomach aches. And that's really the case because mental health issues and our emotions, we hold it in our bodies and it can manifest in physical symptoms. So I'll use myself as an example. When I get super stressed or I'm anxious or I'm nervous, I will end up getting like a headache, or I'll get immediate stomach aches and I'll have to go use the restroom, I'll have diarrhea. And I get super irritable, and my gag reflexes are super sensitive. I used to throw up all the time when I was a kid because I was anxious. And, I've come to know my triggers, and I know how my body reacts to different emotions and distress. And so I'm not panicking every time, or I'm not worried about my symptoms and running to the doctor each time. But for a lot of our clients, especially within the AAPI communities, it's not common knowledge. A lot of people are not aware of this relation between our minds and our bodies. And even if people are, clients tend to prioritize their physical health and medical needs over mental health. And and that this is the stigma, that there's this general sense that it's okay to be physically ill and seek help for medical issues, but it's not okay to seek help for emotional mental illnesses. Like, I fall victim to this too at times. Like, we expect ourselves to be able to just get over, really difficult events and emotional issues and get through those things on our own, because we feel like it's shameful to seek help. But we wouldn't expect like diabetes to resolve on its own, right? So that's kind of where the stigma plays out. And so a lot of times in the clinic, our referrals are coming in from primary care doctors because people are seeking medical care first. And clients will be coming in and they'd be like, my doctor told me to get therapy and I have no idea why. And I'm like, I'm fine, I have no issues, I just can't sleep at night. And so clients may be reluctant to divulge, like intimate details about their histories and their lives, and because they're not used to sharing such things with other people, especially like a stranger, essentially like a therapist. And so a main goal, especially in the beginning of therapy, is to help clients get comfortable and feel safe, and ensure them that they're not airing their family's dirty laundry, and they are not bringing shame to their family, and kind of break down those barriers and address maybe the internalized stigma that we have against mental health, and help people process the difficult life events and the feelings and make those connections. Okay, And then, oh, where did my, okay, there we go. And so in helping clients process and make those connections, it can be a little bit more difficult doing so with our older adults, especially within the AAPI communities. And we got a couple of questions about how to assist the older adults who might be reluctant to receive treatment because, you know, they're not aware of their illness and whatnot. And so in working with older adults, this is where cultural competency is so important. You know, as therapists, as librarians, as, you know, anyone in the helping profession, even just as children and grandchildren, acknowledging the other person's, you know, values and how they grew up and where they're coming from, and having this posture of empathy and just being more willing to listen than to try to teach and correct. Because, you know, as an outsider, it's really easy to like assess somebody and identify all their problems and be like, oh, you need to do this, this, and that, and you'll be fine. You know, great, your depression is gone. But for the older adults, they might be like, I'm fine. I've been like this for 70 years. You know, I have 40 more years experience, life experience than you. What do you have to teach me? And there can be this resistance, and, you know, they might find it pretty offensive to hear that something's wrong with them. And so in dealing with older adults, you know, what can be beneficial and helpful is, like I was saying, is being mindful of those things, like, you know, having a listening ear, having empathy, being understanding that, you know, older adults may have had like 60, 70 years to be really solidified in their beliefs and their values. So it's going to take some time. And, you know, another thing that we can do to help is highlighting their strengths and how therapy and treatment and focusing on mental health can further strengthen their skills, and just discussing how it can also improve their family dynamics. You know, like I know for my parents, at least, and my grandparents, they're not likely to go seek help for themselves. But if I'm like, oh, it'll be good for all of us, it'll be good for your grandchildren, then they may like, oh, for my grandchild, they will be willing to do anything for their grandchild. So those are some angles that you could try to come at when working with older adults. And okay, we got some other questions, but I'm thinking just in the interest of time, we could continue on. Okay, and then Stacy, I'm gonna stop sharing and you can share again. Sorry about this, everyone.
Okay, so to continue, you know, the other thing that, I'm sorry, are you guys able to see the screen now?
Yeah, can you put on the caption button?
Yes, sorry. We're gonna have to kind of toggle back and forth with this. Okay. And, you know, so like Sujin mentioned, it's about trying to get people is buying into receiving mental health services. And sometimes with the generation gap, it's kind of harder, especially when they're already accustomed to a certain, you know, what they've learned. But the other thing is to, you know, approach it in a different way. What I do in my current program is that my mental health team is based within a medical health facility. And we work closely with doctors to try to help them identify patients who may be experiencing mental health issues, and then also have them then you know, connect the patient with us, and then we do some education about mental health and what that looks like, and then also provide treatment on site as well. That's to kind of destigmatize some of the help seeking behaviors for mental health. You know, they may feel safer in a medical facility. We also provide a lot of education to the medical doctors because they are our partners in this, and they can help us make that connection between the patient and ourselves, our community member and ourselves. And so this can also apply to anyone out in the community as well, providing education and sharing that mental health is normalizing the treatment of it in a way where they do not feel threatened or stigmatized or shameful of receiving treatment. And, it was mentioned earlier where, just as you are treating your diabetes with medication, you can treat mental health issues with, there's a range of treatment. It can start out with, coping skills such as meditation that we started with earlier. It can move to, therapy, having one-on-one conversations with a therapist who helps you build on some of their coping skills, and or sometimes medication may also be prescribed in conjunction with therapy and support groups to kind of bring someone back to their mental health, like a more stable status. And then, the other thing too is, we get annual physicals to make sure that our physical body is well. But there's also something that you can do for your mental health. There's you can do screenings at any point, really to see whether you have any anxiety or depression or not. There's actually something called a PHQ screener, patient health question screener, that has a set of questions, about 9 questions, self-administered, and then you can see the scoring at the end as well. And it's also offered in various languages. So I'll pop that web link into the chat a little bit later. But the thing is, when you do more upfront work of education, connecting people to services early on, you can prevent more chronic and long-term illnesses. And so what research has found is that actually preventative care is less costly in the long run, and it reduces the amount of treatment that is needed. It reduces hospitalization possibly. And so, one question that came to us was, how do you convince or help the community see the value of therapy and the cost burden of it in a frugal community? The other thing that AAPI communities might not know is that the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, that was enacted, actually required that mental health care be provided and covered under insurance. So that is something that everyone has access to. The other thing is, and I can identify with this as well, but there was a question about how do you bridge the gap between different languages, especially those who are not fluent in their parents' native language and maybe even grandparents, right? Younger generations, nowadays definitely has more access to technology than their parents may have ever had. And so that can be very challenging for the older generation. And then older generation also, may prefer more face-to-face communication. And so recognizing that there's a difference in these values and respecting it is, I think, the first step. And then also with, being respectful and having, what's called rabbit ears, which is to listen and then to be willing to learn from both generations, right? It has to go both ways, which might be a little bit more difficult in AAPI communities because of this traditional notion of you respect your elders. And then there's, especially with technology nowadays, I think with the younger generation, it could be a bridge by, they can have a bridge by using Google Translate to convey like something, part of their thoughts. It may not convey it 100%, but at least, it will get some of their thoughts through, especially with more difficult conversations. So with AAPI youth and mental health, this is an area where, I mentioned earlier that there is this model minority expectation that can put a lot of pressure on API youth in terms of excelling academically and being perfect. And so this is, one thing that can impact their mental health. There's also family obligations, depending on where that family's may be in terms of immigration status and being in the United States. Some youth may end up having to translate for non-English speaking parents at doctor's appointments, taking care of their younger siblings, taking care of school stuff for them. And then sometimes because of all these obligations, they have less time for their own studying and their own social needs. And so this counters the US society norms of individuation. US emphasizes individuality versus AAPI communities where they will emphasize more of familiar family interdependence. There's also, the added stress, like we mentioned earlier about stigma and not talking about mental illness or issues, psychological problems. So, youth end up bearing a lot of their internal conflicts or feelings, emotions, and holding it inside rather than expressing it in fear of, being seen as being weak or maybe bringing shame to their family. This is, I think, an area where, again, it also goes along with how family members in Asian communities, the mode of communication tends to be more indirect. You keep things to yourself. There's deference to older adults. And so it's a lot of internal burdening. And then again, with cultural and language barriers, especially for new immigrants to the US, that's just like a drastic experience that they're coming to. There's a different culture, and then there's also a different language that they need to learn. And then also with our recent anti-Asian sentiment, that's just something that the whole AAPI community is experiencing now, and that may add to additional stressors that can impact one's mental health.
Okay. So speaking a little bit more about how even stigma and mental health plays out in students, our youth they're coming along in terms of being more aware and having more knowledge about the importance of mental health. And unfortunately, though, maybe the parents aren't as on board with mental health as the children are. And so in the school setting, we get referrals for students experiencing symptoms and anxieties and whatnot. And the barrier can actually be getting the parents on board. And so sometimes we will have to not involve the parents. And so we're asking the students, what their comfort level is. And if they're of age, they can actually just consent to treatment on their own. And if not, then, we'll have to involve their parents. And if that's the case, then, the school counselors and the therapists will have to reach out to the parents and keep them updated. And this is where, cultural competence and and the language is also very important again, that we want to have therapists and clinicians be able to speak the same language as the parents so that they are involved in treatment, and not come at it in a way of like, your child is sick, you know, there's this and that wrong with them or whatnot, but come at it also from a strengths-based approach. And also, you know, a lot of Asian parents, and I'm, you know, across the board too, highly, you know, value academics. And so, you know, a lot of times we'll be like, oh, you know, therapy can help enhance their academics, or, you know, being able to talk about different things with the therapist can really free up their space, free up their minds and their hearts, for them to be able to devote more to their academics and other extracurriculars. And so when referring students, I think those are things that we need to think about. If, you know, maybe in the library setting, I don't know, you know, to be able to connect students and maybe families to resources and some, you know, for counselors and whatnot. And when referring, it's also very important to ensure that the mental health agency has culturally competent clinicians that can involve really the entire family and factor in different cultural values and beliefs into the treatment. And then next, Stacy, I think, do you want to take on?
Yes. Okay, you know, as you all know, currently in our pandemic, we are up to a year now. And so there's questions definitely about how COVID has impacted, you know, one's mental health, particularly just in general. And one, you know, several things that came up, for sure, one is that social isolation, which we've all experienced in terms of trying to, you know, stay at home, be safe. It can be a strong predictor of depression and anxiety and stress across the board. I don't think I've talked to anybody who have said, no, I haven't been stressed out during this pandemic. So social isolation can result in mental health issues. It can exacerbate existing mental health issues and symptoms, but it can also develop as well. And, you know, with this, it also ends up impacting more of the internal stigma against mental health, and it may pose additional barriers to seeking help. But what I found is that in our program, when we pivoted to, you know, working from home and still providing services to our clients, having online services where clients can provide, still get treatment, but over the phone or through the computer, that it was still an accessible, you know, service that people can overcome. And so we've actually seen an uptick of people who are coming to us and saying, I'm really stressed out from COVID. You know, I was fine before and things are just getting worse for me now. Or, you know, I had depression before, I got stabilized, but now with everything that's happening with COVID, I just feel like, you know, I can't, you know, do the same coping skills anymore. So they come back into treatment and try to, you know, learn new skills as to how to cope during this pandemic. Unfortunately, some of the other psychological reactions to the pandemic is we've seen maladaptive behavior. So I mentioned that, you know, some people, they felt like the tools they had before wasn't working anymore. And so, you know, some people may resort to what they did before, which might be substance use. There have been reports of increased irritability or having conflicts with family members. Unfortunately, also some physical aggression. But, you know, the positive thing is that hopefully with some of the clients that we've seen, they are in treatment, they are trying to seek help for what is going on.
Sorry, do you mind turning on the captions again? Didn't want to
Oh,
interrupt.
I'm so sorry. Yes.
Okay. sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. And so in the interest of time, I'm going to try to, we're going to go quickly moving
Yes.
forward. We did want to bring up the topic of trauma just because it is so big in mental health, and a lot of people suffer from it and have a lot of symptoms resulting from trauma, and in light of everything that's been going on. So on the screen is the definition of trauma. And there's lots of different types of trauma. And it's, an event, series of events or set of circumstances that is experienced that can be seen as harmful or life-threatening and has lasting adverse effects on one's functioning and well-being. So what I wanted to talk about is kind of the specific types of traumas that AAPI communities are a little bit more vulnerable to experiencing. And I mean, there's so many, right? To name a few, it could be intergenerational traumas, from the Korean War, and there was so much trauma experienced during that, and that impacts the veterans and those who were alive during that time to develop symptoms like PTSD symptoms and really shape their personalities, and then that's passed on to how their children and how they're parenting. And alcoholism is very prevalent in Korea, and a lot of that also came from just the effects of the Korean War. My grandfather was a war veteran, and after he fell to alcoholism, and that affected his parenting and so forth. So that's one of them. Traumas from immigrating and being discriminated against, and what's really prevalent right now, and the hate crimes against Asians. And even if we're not personally attacked or victimized, there's this rising sense of fear and anxiety of like, am I safe? Am I safe to go out? Am I going to be attacked? Am I going to encounter just racial slurs said against me? And it's really scary. And for the victims as well that are being physically attacked and whatnot, there's a lot of trauma being experienced right now. And so mental health treatment is so important, and we've been talking about like prevention is really key. And so even before people are being victimized and experiencing symptoms, raising awareness is going to be really big. And that's how mental health agencies and different community agencies and libraries can come in and partner with this movement of having conversations and raising awareness and equipping people with the knowledge and the skills to speak up and report crimes and advocate for themselves. And I know this is such a big topic, and we could have another hour-long webinar on this. So I apologize that we're like really brief, just going through it really quickly. Okay, and then Stacy, we can go on to the next slides and finish up. Oh, okay. Okay, you know what? Sorry, I think it was supposed to be me, huh? Let me share my screen again. I apologize. Okay, so this is the different treatment options, and we were saying earlier, mental health wellness is really on a spectrum, and so as is treatment. And you'll see on the left side there's prevention, and we'll partake in prevention services when we're doing okay, we're doing well, and slowly as you become unwell and going towards the right, that's when we will move into early intervention services, like talking to therapists and seeking brief counseling services. And as you get unwell and may experience a psychotic episode or have more severe mental health symptoms, that's when we'll go into more treatment, such as even involving medication support and therapy in conjunction. And, you know, research shows that medication treatment and psychotherapy services work the best together and yield the best results. And, you know, there's other support groups and things like that that would be available for those who need the services. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Sorry, I'm like struggling trying to toggle between all these different screens. Like, I don't know where we're going. Okay, perfect. And okay, so Stacy, do you want to take on this slide?
Yeah. Okay, you guys can see my slide.
Oh, and then the captions.
Yep.
Caption. Is that on now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we understand that there's, you know, many librarians here, and what we wanted to share and impart is that, you know, there can be a role for libraries within mental health wellness. Libraries are actually a great place for prevention services, and what we mean by that is that, you know, this tends to be like a safe place for a lot of community members, but you may come across some people who may experience, you know, some mental illness, and by offering support and a listening ear. The other thing too is that, you know, we don't expect librarians to be mental health experts, but you can be a great connector to mental health services. So, you know, we urge you to, if you can, maybe connect with a local mental health agency that can help you provide you the support and let you know what services they offer. And that way, you know, if you have any questions that come up after an encounter, you'll have that resource available to you. We think also that at libraries, it would be great to have, you know, a hub of information where you can provide flyers and handouts, brochures in many different languages, sorry. You know, with just basic mental health education about what services are available. We put a few links up here. The first one is hatecrimebook.com, which is actually a book that is in several different languages that shares how hate crime can be reported. It is mainly for, I believe, New York City, San Francisco, and LA. So if you're in any of those cities, you can take a look at that. The second link is to, it's a website called changedirection.org, and they offer a lot of great educational posters, brochures that you can order from them and then just have available. Actually have some slides to share with you in just a little bit to show you what it looks like. And then the last link is NAMI, which I mentioned earlier, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, where they offer, you know, on their website, a lot of information sheets as well. So similar to the NIMH, NAMI offers, you know, just one-page information on depression, anxiety. So just having some of these information available at your library for individuals to take, you know, it can help with reducing stigma because they're taking it at their own, taking it on their own. You know, they may feel less embarrassed about that, but at the same time, they'll have information. Also hosting workshops, you know, about mental health information at a library may make community members feel more safe in terms of attending. And then lastly, having available emergency numbers. And this is referring to those who are, you know, may require more acute interventions at that moment. And so, you know, what I'm sharing here, I know that we have attendees who are here from, you know, the East Coast all the way over to Hawaii. But what I'm sharing with you is some information about Los Angeles County, and what I urge you to do is to look into your own state and counties to see if there's something similar. So for Los Angeles County, where I'm based out of, we have something called the helpline, and it's a 800 number. This is a specific Department of Mental Health access line, hotline, where anyone can call in and get connected to services, mental health services, ask questions about mental health, you know, ask about their own family members or friends or for themselves. We also recently, you know, added the crisis text line in response to COVID, and you know, having accessibility to accessibility for the community, and then also for the youth population that are more comfortable with texting. And then in addition, we added a emotional support warm line, and this is for you know, individuals who are dealing with COVID-19 related anxiety and stress, where they just kind of want to talk to somebody and get some tips on how to, you know, what they can do to feel better during this time. And then I also am sharing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. This is something that, you know, it's a national effort. There are many many agencies throughout all the various states that are connected with this prevention lifeline. And so an individual can call this lifeline and get connected to somebody locally who can help them and listen to them and provide support, and maybe even connect them to mental health resources afterwards. And same thing, they also have a chat as well. And then lastly, there's also something called the National Asian American Pacific Islander Mental Health Association. And that is something that I thought was really neat. It's you know, available, and they have a link where you can find all the AAPI providers that are within within your state. So you can click on the state and then look at, you know, which providers around me are have AAPI service providers.
Okay.
So as I mentioned earlier, some of the resource, here's some posters that change direction offers that you can order. And, you know, some of it is basic education on just how can you maintain your emotional well-being or your mental health. You know, what you can do to stay healthy. And then also, this is more about knowing 5 signs of when things are, you know, getting worse for you, and where you might want to seek further help, maybe professional help.
Okay.
That is all we have. Sorry, we breezed through that, but we're mindful of the time.
I know we went over. I apologize.
Oh no, yeah, thank you both. I think because of some of the slight tech issues, but I think we're good. We still have a good number of folks here. Maybe a couple of questions we can address. Okay. The first one is I put up here in the chat. I'm sorry if this has been touched on, but I was wondering what sort of treatment aside from talk therapy would be useful for the Asian American community?
Stacey, you can add on it too. We mentioned definitely medication therapy, treatments for some of the severe mental health symptoms used in conjunction with the talk therapy. There's also, we were talking about having webinars like this and raising awareness and more of the prevention services in partnerships with libraries. Our, you know, APCTC, we are partnered with a couple different libraries, and we offer, it doesn't have to be mental health themed support groups or whatnot. It could be like mommy and me classes, or we have family yoga classes that are being held at the libraries and virtually. And through that, we can help the Asian communities obtain wellness and raise awareness on just the importance of mental health. And even just partnering with, you know, with the libraries and as therapists being able to go and host these different webinars and workshops, it also makes our faces more visible and letting people know that, hey, we are a mental health agency and we have these services available in the case that you need it.
Right, and I'll add to that and saying that, you know, in the medical clinics that we work at, same thing, we offer workshops, but they're not specifically mental health. So one thing that we, you know, do, there's a healthy living group, which is focused on eating healthy and, you know, maintaining, taking care of your physical health. And so there's some education in there about how physical health can impact your overall mood, and how by improving that, it will, you'll notice that there's a change in your mood, you're not as irritable, you're more motivated to improve your physical health as well. And so those are ways where we can, you know, do less mental health interventions. And then also, I just really want to add to, I think there's also sometimes a misunderstanding about talk therapy. You know, people may think that you just go and then you just blab about everything that happened to you. And that's not necessarily the case. There are more, in terms of the shorter term therapies, it is very focused on, okay, what is it that is going on today? Or what's not working for you today? And how can we do that? How can you and I, you know, look at what you're doing and how can we make that change to the behavior? And so over time, the therapist is really supporting the individual in making some small changes that will gradually get them to a part where they, a place where they feel like, okay, you know, I'm capable of bringing myself back to my, my, you know, usual self.
Great. Looks like there hasn't been any other questions, but there is just a comment here from somebody. Thank you for the excellent lecture. I appreciate the time and information that went into this and hope to utilize all of this with my patrons and community. So thank you, Nisha, Stacy, Sujin, for taking the time today and putting together an amazing set of resources. And on behalf of APALA, we're really thankful that all of you were able to present on such a timely, important topic. And really thank you for everyone here joining for this call. Like I said, we will send you the PowerPoints, the slide deck, and with all the resources and links so you can follow up, and also the recording. So with that being said, we'll let everyone go for now and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.